Welcome to the CX Live Dialogues. I'm delighted to have with us today Paul Peet, the Business Design Director at Manifesto. Paul is a digital strategist, business designer, and scaled agile practitioner with a wealth of hands-on transformation experience. He drives strategic leadership of projects, recently co-designing RSPCA's new innovation model and defining Save the Children International's 5-year marketing technology roadmap. Paul focuses on how businesses best utilize people, processes, and technology to achieve strategic goals. Welcome, Paul. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Now, clearly, Paul, organizations are in the midst of a massive digital experience revamp. How are or should organizations you work with be approaching and adopting the use of AI as they move along?
It's a really interesting question. So I think really the first thing to probably say is in terms of organizations using AI, it's more than likely, your employees, your staff, they're already making use of AI. They're likely already using it in a number of tools or in a number of ways. And so I think one of the most important things about organizations approaching and adopting AI is to really build an open, transparent culture about where AI is being used and how they're using it. So what you don't want and what you want to avoid is where people might be using it in secret or not sort of being open about where they're using it, and where that might cause you some headaches down the line. If you create that sort of culture of people being open to say, hey, here's where I'm using AI, or if they do it and they sort of put a sort of message that says, I've used AI to do this, that brings that sort of open, transparent culture and make sure you're bringing it into the open and you're talking about it. And so when approaching your adoption of AI, make sure that that culture is at the heart of it, so that when we get into some of the conversations about some of the ethics, some of the biases, you're aware of them going forward.
Certainly. Now, how does this increase in the use of AI affect how organizations measure their environmental impact, keeping in mind the 2030 climate targets?
So quite dramatically is the sort of short answer, really. The use of AI is fantastic in terms of operational efficiency and sort of streamlining processes. In terms of some of the things that we can do, it's fantastic. But fundamentally, it is an energy drain. We know that the use of data centers and the amount of energy being used to power them is only going up through the use of AI. And so I think where we can use it to sort of streamline and make ourselves more efficient, we need to be mindful of that impact. We have a statistic that we talk about in terms of digital contributing 4% to our sort of global emissions. And really the introduction of AI and use of that could double that statistic in the coming years pretty quickly. And so one of the really important things is and what we're doing with all our clients is start to think about when you actually need to use AI, where it's adding value compared to just using it for the sake of using it. And so one of the things that we've been doing with a lot of our clients is looking at what your sort of process journeys are, what are teams doing, where are they potentially using some of these AI tools, and where's the best place for them to use it. So where you're using it, where it's really delivering value, where it's really showing impact, and where should you not be using it, I guess, in the sense that you don't need to use it in that particular instance, because we need to be mindful that it is using a lot more energy and it is having a big impact on the environment.
Now, obviously, there's a massive thrust within organizations to get digital and offer far more digital services. What is the broader impact of digital on the environment, and how can we measure and track that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we've been working with the Boa Vista Association, which is a way of tracking your environmental impacts. It looks at a number of different measures, from sort of global warming potential through to sort of like physical impact. And they provide a framework by which you can use to really measure the sort of impact of what you're doing and how it can impact the environment, both in terms of digital, but also thinking of your different scope emissions. So we've been working with clients to look at where on sort of journeys they're going to be making use of certain resources and what the impact on their scope emissions is going to look like as a result of that. And so that's one way in which we can track it. It's worth noting that, 9 times out of 10, a digital solution or a digital journey is going to be more energy efficient than perhaps an offline counterpart. But again, speaking of sort of the use of AI and how that's being used, we do still need to be mindful of, it's still having an impact. Just because something is digital doesn't mean it's not having an environmental impact. Entirely the opposite. And we still need to measure it. We still need to be considerate of it and make sure we're not ignoring the fact that that impact's only going to be growing over the next coming years.
Definitely. And when it comes to customer experience, how do Manifesto's environmental considerations impact digital experiences?
And so when we think about sort of the environmental impact, what we want to do and what we champion is really putting the planet as a stakeholder at the heart of our thinking, putting the planet as a user. So we've got a few techniques to think about the environment through our usual sort of digital experience, customer experience journey. And so as an example, one of the things that we champion is as we're designing our new solutions, our experiences, we want to treat the planet as a persona, the same way that you would some of your other personas. So making sure that when we're thinking about our customer experience, we're thinking about the planet actually and what that experience is, how we're sort of impacting our use of resources, how we're impacting the sort of carbon emissions that we're putting out. And by doing this, by starting to bake it into our processes, we're able to design and craft better digital experiences that are more considerate, both for the planet, but also thinking about things like accessibility and inclusivity. We want to think about all of this in terms of the digital experiences we're creating, because we believe by bringing all of these points together, we can craft the most impactful and most valuable digital experiences that are considerate of all of your audiences, both environmental, but also thinking about marginalized audiences who might not otherwise get thought of. And so really the way that we try to think about the planet and the environment is we try to think about it as one of our core sort of non-functional requirements, alongside things like accessibility, inclusivity, performance and security and privacy. And by thinking about it alongside all of these other aspects, that allows us to optimize the experiences that we deliver. None of these are thought of in a vacuum. They're all thought holistically and they're all important to that overall experience. And by bringing them all together, that allows us to put our best digital experiences forward.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you, Paul. It's been a pleasure to have you join us today, and we look forward to meeting you and the Manifesto team at the Digital Experience Show in London next month. Until then, take care.
Thank you very much.